What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTB Ravens Media, bringing you Ravens content every single day. If you want to see that daily Ravens content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Hit the notification bell as well if you want to get notified every single time I upload a brand new video. Now, in this video today, I'm going to be giving kind of an initial preview to the Baltimore Ravens versus Arizona Cardinals game that will be happening. I believe it's actually on Fox tomorrow night, which is Sunday night. And overall, the goal with this video is to talk about certain players that I feel like have the most to prove. We saw week one of the preseason. We got our initial reactions to a lot of players. A lot of players balled out. But there are still some players, including some players that balled out in that game, that still need to show that they deserve to be on this roster. I'm going to be talking about all those players. But before the Ravens game against the Cardinals, Joshua and I will be trying to do another preseason or pregame show where we talk about everything. We talk about with you guys on that live stream. We love to do it an hour before every show, which I believe the game's at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So that would start at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So stay tuned in for that. Don't worry, that's still coming, but I still want to talk about these players. So first off, I want to say the guy with the most to prove is a guy that I think should be on the roster, but I'm still going to start off and say Shamar Bridges, because if Shamar Bridges comes out and really struggles, it could be a situation where we see, hey, maybe he's not the guy that we thought he was. Now, I fully believe in Shamar Bridges. I've already said that I think he should make the team, but if he really struggles, if he has a drops problem or something like that, it could allow someone else to maybe slide up that depth chart and really start competing with him, because I think right now he's kind of the leader to make the roster as the non Ravens from last year. I feel like he's, the guy in the best position to make that team with how he played in that first preseason game. But we're still yet to see, can he continue that? Can he keep developing? And can he really show not just the Ravens fans, but the Ravens coaches and the Ravens, management, that he's the guy that they need? Because the Ravens just brought in a free agent wide receiver in Demarcus Robinson. I love that signing. But they're bringing in wide receivers still. So you got to make sure that you're not slacking off. You got to make sure that you put back-to-back great performances together. Now, does he have to have, 100 yards and a touchdown? No, but he's got to look competent. He's got to look like the guy that we saw in week one. Another player that I want to talk about, I'll come back to the wide receivers a little bit later, but I don't want to keep talking about wide receivers. But I feel like it's Anthony Brown. I think Anthony Brown, he really surprised me in that first preseason game. I think he was the biggest surprise, because I came out of that game like, should he be our starting quarterback? Because the way the offense looked with him, the way that Greg Roman was calling those plays, it looked like, wow, this offense is trying to move the ball down the field. This offense is trying to be explosive, which is something that we didn't really see a lot with Tyler Huntley. And if he can continue to really put up weeks where he's throwing a good deep ball and he's throwing good passes and he's showing off he has really good arm strength, that's something where all of a sudden, in 3 weeks, right before the season starts, maybe the Ravens are like, hey, 3 quarterbacks, let's do it. And maybe that's worthwhile for him. And again, this may not be the flashiest guy to talk about, because obviously, backup quarterback is not a position that you ever want to see on the football field. Well, unless you're up by 30 in the fourth quarter, then it's okay. But, Tyler Huntley performed very well last season. I think a lot of people really believed in him. A lot of people still do believe in him. But a lot of people have also brought him up in trade possibilities. Hey, if we trade away Tyler Huntley, who looked really solid last year, for a team that maybe needs an interim quarterback, a bridge quarterback, as some might call it, Anthony Brown, if he can show the Ravens that he can be a competent backup, maybe the Ravens, if that opportunity presents itself, maybe they take it. Again, I think it's most likely that Tyler Huntley is the backup quarterback, but the Ravens could keep 3. They've kept 3 in the past. We'll see what they end up doing. I think he really showed me that he can actually be a really solid backup in the NFL based off of that first preseason game. Again, he's got to make sure that he puts back-to-back performances, alive. And again, we don't know the exact starting lineup. We don't know exactly who's playing. These are all assumptions that I'm making. I know Lamar's not playing. I know Mark Andrews isn't playing. So that's kind of all I'm going off of. I'm just assuming most of the starters aren't playing, kind of based on how Harbaugh was talking about it. Maybe the defensive starters, we may see some PQ. We may see some Adafe, things like that. But those are kind of my thoughts right there. But Let's switch over to the defensive side of the ball. I don't think we need to see any more from Travis Jones. Like, I'm sold on him. He is not a player that I'm going to bring up. I saw that game. Obviously, I think he'll perform well again. But if he doesn't perform and dominate the game, I'm not sad about it. But I'm gonna go with Mike Davis because I think he put together a good performance. In the first couple of drives of that game when he played. But the Ravens have a lot of running backs. Justice Hill, maybe I can say all the running backs that are playing because Justice Hill looked really good as well. So Justice Hill, Tyler Beatty, Mike Davis. The Ravens already released Corey Clement, so like they're tightening that gap right there. All of those players need to show why the Ravens can keep them. Whether it's Tyler Beatty returning the kicks and the punts, whether it's Justice Hill no longer being that east to west running back and really starting to see him cut up field and really use that speed to his advantage. Because that was the weakness of his game, was it was like he's never getting up field. He's always dancing side to side. He can never really take that next step, get to the next level. We started to see that. We started to see that development. Maybe, him getting injured last year and sitting out for a little bit was him. Maybe he was able to just kind of recognize, hey, I got to get up the field a little bit more. I got to be more explosive. Maybe he's really trying to work on that into his game, and we're seeing it. But Mike Davis, he's trying to be the vet running back on this team. Week 1, we don't know if we're going to have Gus. We don't know if we're going to have JK. The assumption is we will have JK. But who's going to be that number 2? Could it be Mike Davis? Could it be Justice Hill? Could it be Nate McCrary? Could it be, Tyler Beatty? Any of these players have the possibilities. They have the potential. They have the skill to do it. But they got to make sure they put together good performances to show the Ravens coaching staff that, hey, they can do exactly what they need. Whether it's pass catching, whether it's run blocking, or not run blocking, pass blocking, or running the football. We got to see what these guys can bring to the table. But onto the defensive side of the ball, I think we got to see some more out of Pepe. I think Pepe played really, really solid in that first game. He jumped. I believe it was an out route, may have been a corner route, but it was an outside route. He jumped the route, got his hands on the ball, didn't end up catching it. And I know a lot of people that frustrates. It's kind of frustrating in the moment. Oh, it could have been a pick 6. But at the same time, those instincts showed. They showed. I want to see those instincts again. Is that he got lucky type of, he just broke on the route? Or can we see like really consistent play out of Pepe, trying to really become, he has a chance of becoming a player on this team this year. Not saying he's going to be on the roster, but playing in the games. Because when we go into dime coverage, right? We've got, Marlon, Marcus, Kyle Fuller. Those are our cornerbacks. If we want to bring in that 4th cornerback, there's a race between Jalen Armour-Davis, Pepe Williams, and I believe Jalen Armour-Davis isn't going to play. I believe he's still injured currently. If he's not, I apologize, but I believe he's not playing. Who's going to be that number 4? Could it be Brandon Stevens, who, really solid outside last year? Or maybe Brandon Stevens plays in that safety role. Could it be the Ravens ended up signing Daryl Worley? Could it be Daryl Worley? He made the interception last week. He's played for the Ravens. Or could it be Demarion Pepe Williams? I really hope it's Demarion. I really hope he puts up a good performance because I really like his game. I think he's a playmaker. I think he has those instincts. I think they showed. He's just got to capitalize. First game of his NFL career, maybe he got a little bit jittery, and hopefully he's able to calm down and, just improve upon what he did last week. But, one other defensive player that I want to bring up, is maybe a guy like Malik Harrison. Because Malik Harrison last week, he forced the fumble, but he's really trying to compete to become that linebacker 2 next to Patrick Queen. Because right now it seems like Josh Bynes is that guy. But if Malik Harrison can keep showing that, hey, he can make plays and force fumbles, get involved in the run game, make big hits, and he's got to become much more competent in the pass coverage game because that's been kind of his weakness, right? That's been him and PQ's weaknesses. They've struggled in the passing game. If he can show like, hey, maybe I'm not so bad in coverage. Not saying he was ever horrible, but it was just something they needed to work on. It wasn't his strength. Maybe he can end up getting a little bit more reps this year because I really like him as a player. I really like watching him. He just attacks the football, like just 100 miles an hour attacks the football. Got to get a little bit more control. But if he does that, I think he could be a really solid linebacker for the Baltimore Ravens. That's it for the defensive players. I could say, hey, the Ravens should really see what they can get out of Jordan Stout, but I think he played really well. I think we saw, like, hey, he's really solid. But the final guy that I'm going to bring up outside of wide receivers is Daniel Faalele. I want to see, was last week a fluke? Because he looked pretty good last week. He's going to probably be out there playing right tackle. I want to see how he looks. I mean, that's really it. I want to see how he looks because he's a project player. And I want to see how he's doing. Is he a project that's going to take 2 years, or is he a project that takes 6 weeks? We don't know yet. We don't know when he's going to be able to play. And we want to make sure that maybe he's ready in case there is an injury, knock on wood. In case there is an injury, he can step in. Otherwise, it'll have to be a guy like Patrick McCarry. It'll have to be a guy like, everyone's favorite offensive lineman, Juwan James. Tyree Phillips, the best offensive tackle in the NFL. That's a joke. He's horrendous at offensive tackle. Do not put him out there whatsoever. I want to see Daniel Faalele. Now, in terms of wide receivers, I think the guy with the biggest chip is Mekhi Polk, because Mekhi Polk looked decent. He looked decent. But Shamar Bridges, I think, created a gap between him and the other undrafted rookies. And I think right now, Mekhi Polk is the closest player. Could Slade Bolden play well? Yes. Could, Bailey Gaither play well? Could Benjamin Victor play well? And some of these guys may be hurt. We don't know exactly who's going to be playing, but I'm just naming off the name. Jalen Moore, could they play well? Absolutely. But I think Mekhi Polk, with his frame, his skill set, his ability to kind of get big plays, we need to kind of see that because he was more of an underneath player in this last week's game. Can we start to see him maybe getting a little bit farther down the field and getting those types of plays that we saw out of him, playing in the SEC at Mississippi State? That's the kind of thing that I want to see, that development from week to week, from what we're able to see out of him. There's a lot of guys in preseason, everybody has something to prove, but these are, I went over the guys that I'm most looking forward to watching. Let me know who you guys are watching out for. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe for Daily Ravens content, and I'll see all of you again tomorrow, with that